Hello, friends, and thank you as always for visiting the LSU Dynasties YouTube channel, the YouTube home of Legend Sports Universe, all-time dynasties all the time. The Legend Sports Universe is a series of cross-era simulation dynasties using the greatest players of all time put in a merged environment of fictional teams, real players, using out-of-the-park baseball, franchise hockey manager, pro strategy football, and title bout championship boxing, and will soon be starting a basketball dynasty using draft day sports basketball. I'm excited about this. This is an announcement for a couple of projects that I've got that are going to be starting work on now. It's going to take a bit until completion, but I'm looking forward to doing these as I have gotten into doing the broadcasting more. Looking forward to having a bit more of a visual element to this stuff that I'm doing, or adding that stuff. I'm not going to be stopping anything that I'm doing now. I love the games that I'm currently playing, all the stuff of the Legend Sports universe I'm very excited about. But there's going to be a couple of new additions to this in the next few weeks. Hopefully not months, hopefully weeks, depending on as time allows. But some cool stuff coming here, so let's get to it. A new part of the Legend Sports universe is going to be the Franchise Stars Baseball League, using MLB The Show for the PS5. I have, as you all know, I love all-time stuff. I love bringing sports history to life. I love bringing players from across eras together. And the All-Time Baseball League that I currently do using out-of-the-park baseball is great. I love it. Fortunately, I've gotten a lot of support on here for that, which is awesome. And that's going to continue as it is. That's not going to be getting dropped. But that league setup is fictional teams, players coming in, and all kind of being thrown into the mix together, ending up, open draft, all that kind of stuff. The Franchise Stars League is going to be executed a bit differently. I will be compiling all-time teams for all of the franchises. That's going to be set up based on a master list of 100 top players based on WAR, using the top 8 at catcher, first base, second base, third base, and shortstop, the top 20 outfielders, the top 25 starting pitchers, and the top 15 relievers. I love incorporating relievers. I feel like bullpen should be comprised of relief pitchers. They're part of the team. I don't feel like bullpen should be comprised of starters. That's just a personal preference thing. So the difference with the Franchise Stars League is that the initial roster is going to be 40 players from that list picked by a random generator. So a franchise may not start with their absolute best guys. So the Mets, for example, if you've got 100 players there and you've got 20 outfielders, when that initial roster starts, Darryl Strawberry may not come up on that squad. Carlos Beltran may not show up on that squad. Tom Seaver may not be one of the random pitchers. He'll eventually be with the Mets in a subsequent draft or whatever, but he may not start with them. So you're going to kind of get a franchise's history to a certain degree there, but it's all going to kind of happen a little bit randomly. And I think the real reason that I'm doing that is kind of twofold. One, if you do an all-time roster and you put all the best 100 players in there and you start all these guys at 22 years old, what ultimately happens is the majority of those guys never see the light of day. They just stay down there in the minors because they have great players ahead of them blocking their path. So doing things like this, and basically the rest of those roster spots throughout the minors are all going to be filled with very low-rated kind of Joe Random kind of guys, just basically roster filler, so that the guys who are always called up and always used are going to be the real players. The reason that I want to do it like this way with a little bit of a random element as to who joins at the start, who joins down the line, is to kind of balance the playing field a little bit. Baseball-wise, you're going to figure if you go all-time from the start, the best ever, the Yankees, the A's, the maybe the Cubs, the Phillies, the Dodgers, are always going to kind of have the teams that have been around the longest and have the biggest pool pick from are probably going to have the best squads. So doing things the way I'm doing them now can create a situation where maybe teams that don't have the lengthy history but have really good players in their history, if it breaks right for them, they can compete with those other teams. So that's the reason why I'm structuring it the way I'm structuring it. The other benefit to doing it that way, and I kind of touched on this a couple minutes ago, is that basically it will extend or increase the possibility that everybody gets in involvement in the league. Instead of, if you're the Yankees, for example, and you start out with Lou Gehrig and, Don Mattingly both on the roster at the start. Well, Gehrig's going to start. Mattingly's never going to play. But if Mattingly enters 6 years after this league started, and now Gehrig's, 28, 29 years old, whatever, now as Gehrig ages out, or potentially moves, I'm going to set everybody's contracts to something relatively high because I don't want these teams getting torn apart at the beginning. That kind of defeats the purpose. So I'm probably going to send everybody, I'm going to make their contracts however long they were with the team. And I'm going to set everybody to those long contracts and to the minimum contracts because I don't want finances blowing things up either. But, say Gehrig, Gehrig spent his whole career with the team, so he's a bad example. But in a situation like that, say Gehrig was a free agent after 7 years or something like that, then the door opens for Mattingly while he's still young and has a chance to have a full career. So it's basically just a means of making sure that all these players kind of get their time in the league. If that idea appeals to you, hopefully this one will as well. The Franchise Stars Football League, coming to Madden Football, also for the PS5, is going to be done in largely the same kind of format. Now, Madden is going to be a little bit more time consuming as far as creating the players because the moving of players is not as easy as it is in MLB The Show. So the creation process, even though creating the ratings, I've already got formulas kind of in place. But creating the players is going to be a little bit more time consuming as far as getting the rosters right and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really excited about this. I think football visually is so much more fun than a text sim of it. It just speaks. It kind of calls for being able to see the action a bit. Again, I will not be dropping my Legend Sports Universe Football League. I will still be doing that, but this is going to be in addition to it, just a different project idea, but one I'm really excited about. So the setup for this is going to be much the same way. Each franchise is going to get a master list of its 100 top players based on Pro Football References approximate value figure, which is basically their kind of equivalent of win shares for Baseball Reference. So we're going to go. That list is going to be comprised of 5 quarterbacks, 6 halfbacks, 3 fullbacks, 10 wide receivers, 5 tight ends, 7 offensive tackles, and 7 offensive guards, 4 centers, and then 8 defensive tackles, 8 defensive ends, 14 linebackers, 10 cornerbacks, 7 safeties, 3 kickers, and 3 punters. And then the initial roster will be 40 players from that list. I may up that. I may go to like 45. But again, I don't want to go and have guys not utilized. So I kind of want to find the sweet spot there. I'm inclined to think it's going to be 40. I think that will give me, that basically gives you a starter and a reserve at every single position plus. So I may even make it a little bit less than that. Just injuries is such a factor in football. So I got to take that into account as well. So I say 40, figure somewhere between 35 and 40 is probably where I'm going to sit when that's done. and it will start from there. And the exact same premise is going to happen. I will be doing all the player ratings myself, as I always do, using my formulas. And again, each year, 3 random players from the team's history are going to join as part of the quote unquote draft. What I may do with, and I may do this with the baseball one too, since both of the games kind of do an amateur draft at the end. They have fictional draft picks created. I don't know if I can create a draft class for Madden. I can't for the show. But basically then take a player. So if the Jets come to draft and the Jets' first 3 picks are a halfback, a defensive tackle, and a guard, well, then I will take their picks from the list. Those 3 random players are going to be from those positions. I may handle it that way. But I'll kind of flesh that out once I get to it. But this is the core setup for it. And again, I think it's going to be a bit more fun in a different way. The fictional teams that I have going in the current universe now is a great thing and a lot of fun. But I think, especially doing the broadcast and stuff like that, I think there might be a little bit more of people identifying with a franchise, a real franchise, and players tied to that franchise. So I'm kind of looking forward to handling things that way as well going forward. So both of these projects are going to be done in a kind of pod setup. Basically, I'm going to do 6 teams at a time. I don't want to stop doing the leagues that I'm doing. I want to keep on doing the broadcast for the leagues that I already have going while I get these console projects underway. So doing things in kind of 6-team pods is going to let me as I do these teams, I'll do exhibition games between these 6 teams as I'm completing that batch. And then I will move on to another batch of 6. But I'll do, occasional broadcasts of these while they're being developed so people can kind of see how the project is developing and start to get a feel for it as it continues to go. And I think that's also going to help me kind of keep my my desire going for the project, because it could take a bit of time for me to complete this whole thing. So you'll see here for the Franchise Stars Baseball League, pod number 1 begins with the New York Mets, who've been my favorite team. Obviously, so I'm going to handle them first, as well as the Los Angeles Dodgers and the St. Louis Cardinals from the National League. And from the American League, we're going to go with the Boston Red Sox, the Detroit Tigers, and the Oakland A's to start off. If you are a Yankee fan, don't worry, they will be in pod 2. I just wasn't going to do 2 New York teams at the start. And again, the Mets being my team, they get first dibs. So we go to the Franchise Stars Football League setup. That will be done exactly the same way. So the first pod there, again, I'm trying to go 3 team. I'm going to do 6-team pod, 3 teams from each league. So the NFC representatives, the Chicago Bears, the Dallas Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers, and the AFC. Did I say National League? I think I may have just said National League. The NFC. And then from the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Oakland Raiders. And I will handle that in the same fashion. I'll do kind of as I complete a team, I will do, so if I do the Bears first and then do the Chiefs second, I'll do an exhibition game between those 2 teams while I work on the next team. And then once I complete, the Cowboys, and the Cowboys do an exhibition game against the Bears and the Chiefs while I do the Steelers, and so on and so forth. So I'll kind of keep the project updating and keep people apprised how it's going, and they can get a more of a feel for what I'm doing here, and hopefully we'll ramp up interest for when the league portion of it kicks off. I'll be doing different posts here coming up as far as the rosters, the 100-player pool for each team, and the 40 players who start, who are going to be the starting guys on the first, the inaugural quote-unquote draft portion for those teams. And then, like I said earlier, the other guys will come on in subsequent draft classes to their appropriate teams. So that'll kind of wrap this up. I'm excited about these projects. I have another project coming up too that is almost ready to begin as on back on the PC side of things, a project that's long overdue. So that's coming too. So there's lots of stuff coming here. I'll be updating all of these projects, not just here on the LSU Dynasties YouTube channel, but on Legend Sports Universe on the Instagram as well as the Facebook. And I will still be posting in, sports simulations and, digital advice and all that stuff. But I do have my own account going on there that'll probably do a lot more stuff on. I'm not going to flood the other groups with, kind of minutia that I might go and dump on the Legend Sports Universe page itself. So hopefully you will swing on by, give a like and a follow there, and keep up to date with all that is going on with the Legend Sports Universe. Thank you as always for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Be good to each other, and we'll talk soon.